Hey everyone, it's me again, Brittany, and I'm here today to show you my April bullet journal setup. As we've been doing the past few months, I'm also just going to do a quick flip through of how my normal one turned out. I chose like a rainstorm theme. Specifically, I wanted it to be like a being indoors while watching a rainstorm through a window theme. Most of these pictures are printed out, but I wanted it to be like half drawn, if you can tell. So like the picture may be drawn, but I'll continue it with curtains or something on the exterior. I don't know. I thought it would be cool. And I chose the theme Rainstorms just because I really was inspired by like the April showers bring May flowers kind of thought. So like if things are kind of crazy and hard right now, then good things are still coming. I mean, if you guys saw my fairy loot video, which I'll link up above, where I gave a life update, I'm moving or in the process of doing that. So there's a lot of life things going on. And I felt that that was just like a good way to look at it since I love rainstorms. But now for my actual reading journal theme, and I'm so excited about this one. I'm doing a phoenix theme. I kind of tried to make my nails inspired by a phoenix's journey, you know, like the red and like the charcoaly middle nail and the gold. I don't know if it really turned out well, but that was kind of the thought process also behind how I wanted the pages to go in my theme. I wanted it to be the journey that a phoenix goes through, like its lifespan. So this first page is actually like the ashes of when it first dies out. So I just started again by drawing out these little like ash flakes, just using my, I think it's the Prismacolor brush pen. I'll have all of my supplies linked down below. So if you're ever curious about anything like that, it's linked in my description bar. But now I'm actually going in with the 0.5 sizing in my Pigma Micron pens just to draw in the days of the month. So I do like to have the days of the month laid out like a calendar, and that way I can kind of fill them in as I read. But now we're going in with yet another brush pen, but the Tombow Fudenosuke like hard tip, to outline my phoenix. Again, I wanted this first page to be the initial like dying out journey of a phoenix. So I'm laughing because it turns out kind of like very heavy metal rock, and that wasn't the intention at all at first. But right here, he's, or she, I'm not sure. I didn't name my phoenix. What should we name it? Anyways, they're looking down and they're kind of like giving out their last hurrah, their last breath of air, I guess, to start the journey. And I wanted it to be like the darker reds fading into like the charcoal black. So again, you're gonna see, I think it turned out kind of like heavy metal, but I still think it looks pretty cool. And I did all of the shading in with just some Tombow brush pens that I had. I just kind of tried to find, I think, just one red one orange, one yellow, and then like the gray tones that I have. So I guess it's a pretty simple color palette, but there's a lot of shading that goes into it that makes it look a little bit more complicated, I suppose. This one did turn out to be a pretty drawing heavy theme when I wasn't initially intending for it to be that way. I did want obviously the cover page, and as you'll see the last page, to have a phoenix. So I knew that that was going to take a little bit more, I don't know, time, but I wanted the middle pages to be more representative of the journey and be more like simplistic kind of graphic designs. And it still took me a really long time. So just be wary of that, I suppose. I feel like once you see it in the end, I don't know how I could have thought it wouldn't take me a long time, but I always underestimate the amount of time it's going to take me to do one of these. And here I'm actually just shading with like the oranges and yellows and red around the ash flakes because I wanted it to look like they were still kind of burning. And I think that this is actually what ended up making it look more like heavy metal rather than just phoenix themed. I'm not sure. Let me know. But right now it's just going to be a lot of coloring. So ooh, and here we have the first of what's going to be many, many mistakes in this theme. And mistakes, I say that kind of harshly, but they all turned out okay, I think, in the end. but all of the lettering in this one was just giving me the hardest time. I think it's because maybe I was still going in when things were a little too wet, so the paint pens that I was using weren't able to grip. The orange one right there was just dumping out paint, which was also kind of impossible, and I just was trying to let it dry, and that's what I ended up moving over to the left side to do more coloring for. Right now I'm doing a little bit of shading in that corner because I want to have a quote on this page. I picked out, I think, 3 or 4 different quotes that had to do with phoenixes for this bullet journal theme, and I do them all in the end, so just stay tuned. Let me know what you think they're gonna be. There's one that isn't necessarily straightforward, a phoenix quote or anything like that, but it's one of my all-time favorite quotes, and I was so excited that it fits so well with this theme, and it's the one that's gonna be going on this page. So yeah, let me know what you think it's gonna be down below, or let me know what your favorite kind of like phoenix or rebirth style quote is. I am really happy though that I chose these 2 different themes. I feel like they're opposites but in such similar ways because they both have to do with, like, I don't know, like big changes and big situations that seem, I don't know, I wouldn't say that a rainstorm feels like the end, but sometimes when you're in a rainstorm it's just such a different vibe, and obviously the phoenix is like the symbolism of rebirth, and I'm normally not a person that likes change, but I've really just been working on my mindset on that because change does not have to be a bad thing. I mean, look at the phoenix, because it's literally dying and then it's just going to be reborn into another version, maybe a better version of itself. And I think that it's nice that it looks like, at least with my themes, my mind seems to be heading in that direction as well, which, you know, here for growth, am I right? But here I'm just numbering out the days of the month, and I am going to be just coloring in on the days that I do read versus having separate colors for separate things as I used to. But here you see me kind of try to work more on the lettering for April and days read, and I just kind of had to give up and let it dry and move on to the next spread. So here we're gonna have my TBR and hauled. I accidentally skipped over a page. And even here you're seeing that the title was bleeding through, but it's not a big deal because this page is, it's cool. I mean, I don't really know why this popped into my head when I initially was thinking of like the journey of being a phoenix, but I just was thinking of like molten lava, just seeping through like cracks, like lava rock. Lava rock? Is that a term? You know what I mean. The rock around a volcano where like lava has turned into like the black charcoaly rock, and when it's like cracking and you can see the lava just flowing beneath. That's what I wanted this page to look like and kind of represent, which again is not necessarily something that, oh, a wild chala appears to hang out. But again, lava has really nothing to do with a phoenix as far as I know, so I don't know why this was something that came to mind, but it is, so we're gonna go with it. And I think it does look pretty cool, and luckily it meant that having some bleeding from the paint on the other page did not matter. But here we just have the start of like the red brush pen that I'm going to like run along between all of the different rocks. This is another page that I ended up having to go back to quite a few times because I just felt unsatisfied with how it had turned out. I ended up trying like gel pens and paint pens. I try making the rock darker. I just felt like it wasn't matching the idea in my mind. And to be totally fair, I had no reference picture. I was just coming up with a lot of the stuff from my mind. Oh, it's a different day. So we're lighting a candle, which I had totally forgotten to do. And this is kind of funny because I picked this out because it's literally called Ash Crown. And then I realized this is the candle that had melted and there was no wick. So I had to go find a different one. And I found this one, which was Mount Ruin. And it's like a nice, beautiful red shade and it has a wood wick. It smells like cinnamon, which isn't like the smell I want now that we're going into spring, but it was vibey, right? But what was I saying about the rock? I was just coming up with this stuff off of like ideas that I had in my head, so it's kind of fair that a lot of it didn't turn out maybe how I imagined it would, because I didn't have the reference to make sure that I was kind of following the right rules. So yeah, I mean, there's a few mistakes on every single page, I would have to say, in this theme, but I do really like how the end result turned out. So yeah, it's always important to see something through to the end. I feel like trust the process is never more true than when you are drawing in any sense. Like any kind of art that you're doing, trust the process, because it's always going to look like a wreck until the very end. Or at least that's my experience. And here you see me try and decide how I wanted my titles to go. I was going to originally do that gold pen on the rocks and decided against it, and just went for like the Tombow Fudenosuke and red brush pen in a very simple, messy font. And we'll be going back to that page later, but for now, we're moving on to my book's red spread. So this one's actually surprising, to me at least, how well it turned out. I've never really drawn fire, ever, and when I was initially plotting this whole thing out, it was late at night, and this page was one of the last ones that I'd drawn, and I just was being very messy about it, and I literally drew squiggles, like squiggles in the shapes that I think that fire might kind of go around in. And when I went to go do it for this spread, I was like, actually, if I just trace the squiggles in like a cohesive manner, I think it might really look like fire instead of squiggles. So it worked. I don't know why it worked, but it did. So if you're ever trying to draw fire, I don't know if it's going to work every time, but try doing some squiggles and then drawing over them. But yeah, and then it's just a lot of shading. I like that this one looked very cartoony, which isn't normally my style, and I really liked it for this like bullet journal theme. And now on to the final page of my spread, which is going to be kind of like a art page plus the blank page I tend to leave now that is sort of like a brain dump area, an unofficial brain dump area. And I wanted to draw this phoenix that's quite literally been in my mind for years. Before I ever got tattoos, when I was like 16, I'd seen a beautiful phoenix tattoo that was tribal inspired, and it was always stuck in my head. I used to draw it everywhere. I thought it was going to be my first tattoo. I mean, I still feel like I would love to have that tattooed. I don't know. But I wanted to draw kind of a realistic, not even realistic, just a colored in version of that tribal tattoo, because this obviously isn't realistic, but I did just want it to have the colors and the shades and like the flow of a phoenix rising. I wanted a lot of the yellow tones to be in this one compared to the first page where it's a lot of the darker tones. I just wanted it to look like a fresh, bright, burning phoenix. And I think that it turned out really cool. I mean, this one is something that I spent a lot of time on because I just kept going over it in different shades. And I don't know. I think ultimately, though, it turned out really, really cool, and I can't complain. I feel like more than ever we need to find a name for this beautiful phoenix that literally lives in my head rent-free at all times. But yeah, I'll try and find a picture also of the tribal one that I'm talking about. If I can find it, it'll be right here. But if I can't, just know it looks really, really cool. Maybe one day I'll draw that one out too. But yeah, now it's time to finally start adding in some of the quotes that I've been avoiding doing this entire time. So we're just starting with the one for the end. I wanted them to kind of go in a story, if that makes sense, like kind of like how the journey is going throughout the pages. But I did kind of just pick these quotes out because I liked them, not because they were meant to represent the stages at all. But this last quote that I ended up putting next to the reborn phoenix is, "Whether we remain the ash or become the phoenix is up to us." Yeah, I hadn't known this quote before. I just literally looked up phoenix quotes or reborn quotes on Google, and that's one of the ones that came up and I really, really liked because Like I said, I'm not always a big fan of change, and I think that this is a really good representation of the fact that we kind of ultimately hold our own destiny in the way that we view change, because yeah, you can either become a phoenix or you can stay in the ash, but it's going to be your decision in the end. At least that's always how it's been for me. I am my own worst enemy, but I can also be my own best cheerleader. So, or well, at least I need to start being my own best cheerleader, you know? But now it's finally time to do the quote on the title page. Let me know if you ended up guessing correctly, but it is a quote from the Shadow and Bone series, and I think that this one specifically was in Ruin and Rising, but it's a quote that I think Genyes says, and it just is, "I am not ruined, I am ruination." This is another thing that I wanted tattooed on my body the moment I read it. I just loved it so much. I loved the language version of it too, the Na Razrushaya Ea Razrushost. I literally no idea how to pronounce that, but I wanted that 100% to be a part of this spread, and I feel like it being on that first page really works because, you know, a phoenix dying out, you would imagine if someone didn't know the story, they would think that that is the end, and instead they come back with a vengeance. I mean, I don't know, a lot of the mythology I think doesn't really have to do with vengeance. I could be totally wrong though. Either way, I just still felt like it matched up pretty well. Just now you saw me mess up and realize that I was gonna have to wait for things to dry again, so I went over to the Books Read spread and just wrote it out in a simple cursive. I do like how simple this title came out, and I have been thinking about bringing back my quotes pages lately, but for this month I'm actually going to try writing at least one quote under every book I finish. That way it's not really its own separate thing, but I also still have quotes from books. And here, as you can see, a lot of the coloring changed. I had to go over the tiles in calligraphy ink to try and get this to show up well enough in the so many different paint pens and gel pens. But the quote is, "In order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix first must burn." And this is another one that I did really like for this step in the journey, I guess, but it is pretty similar, I think, to the last quote that I also wrote down. But yeah, that's kind of it. I think those are the only quotes that I chose out for this spread. They're the only ones that would have fit, I guess. And I just kind of went over Halden to be read again. And now we just do a little flip through. So, like I said, my first page feels kind of heavy metal-esque, but I love it so much. I do really like how this page turned out as well, the Halden to be read spreads. I just like how matte it looks after the Fudenosuke calligraphy ink. This one also just... it feels lively and like happy fires. I don't know. That could just be in my head. And I did feel like I needed to change something up with my phoenix. So in a moment, you're going to see me actually kind of color in a background. So bye, but not really, because here we are coloring that in. I just felt like it felt unfinished, and I wanted to add maybe a little bit of a yellow, like sunlight glow to it, just to liven it up a bit. I don't know, give it just those happy vibes. Let me know what you think. But here we are. I'm just turning off my ring light to kind of show you the saturation a little bit better, and I think that it looks pretty cool. I hope you guys enjoyed these themes. I had so much fun making them. I really loved them. And if you want to leave an emoji, leave a fire emoji at the end of your comment, or instead of a comment if you don't have anything to say. But that's going to be it for this video today, guys, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye!